Welcome to the Arts to Hearts podcast, a show where we take a peek into the hearts and lives of our favorite artists. From running a creative business and practice to mindset, we talk about everything that goes behind into making a life and a career that you adore as an artist. Think of this as your happy hour with your favorite artist in your studio. Hear them share the messy and the wonderful side of creating and living a creative, heartfelt life within and outside our studios. As you tune in, be ready to be inspired and encouraged. I'm your host, Charuka Arora, an artist, designer, entrepreneur, and founder of Arts to Hearts project. Thank you so much for being here. Let's jump right in. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Arts to Hearts podcast. I'm your host, Charuka Arora. Today, I have one of my favorite guests. I've seen her do multiple things beautifully, and she always amazes me with how much she gets done and how beautifully she gets done. Today, we have a powerhouse of design and art with us, Shelby. Welcome to the podcast, Shelby.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Same here. Thank you so much for coming. It's a pleasure to have you here. Before we get into the episode, Shelby, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself so that they can know you better?
Sure. So, my name is Shelby McFadden, and I guess I'm a bunch of different people. Different hats is what I wear during the day and at night. Most of all, I'm a mom. I'm a full-time mom, and I also run a publication, an art publication, and I have an Etsy shop called Fugly Barbie that I design products for. And I also have my side projects, my little hobbies of illustration and artwork. So I somehow get all of that done in 24 hours. And um, that's really it. That's the secret, or not secret.
Love that. I think we all need to know how are you getting it all done, because how are you doing it? It's not only about doing it. How are you even killing it? You don't only do it, you do it so well that it just amazes all of us.
Well, I think the most important thing is, and I always say this a lot, I get the asked that actually the most is like, how do you get all this stuff done? Which I'm like, I have no really, I don't have like an exact formula or anything. All I just say is that I schedule everything. And whether it's in my head or on my calendar, I just know like, okay, well, I start the day off. I know I need to get X, Y, and Z done. Most importantly, I have to take care of my kid, soon to be another kid coming along the way. So that's even more challenging. But I think as far as like for each thing that I do, um, have a vision for everything. And I think as a designer, I pay attention to branding big time. So that kind of helps to make sure that everything's streamlined, everything's consistent. So when I do work, it's like I said, it's a schedule, and I just get things done so that it looks cohesive and or whatever it is that I'm doing is informative and presents well and has a goal. So I always keep those things in mind while I'm doing anything because I don't have that much time. And like I said, it just really comes down to scheduling. That is literally it.
So we'll keep your number one tip as scheduling.
Yes, but also keeping time for yourself is important too, because if you're starting to feel burnt out, which I do, I feel burnt out sometimes and I can feel it. Like it's when I start losing the motivation, the things just kind of feel rushed or they don't look as cohesive. And I'm like, okay, I need to step back. Tonight's the night that I like binge watch a show, or, I have date nights on Fridays with my husband. I don't work weekends anymore. So I have to fit as much in as possible in a short amount of time, but I also want to honor that you need a break. You need some of that self-care time. So I think it's just learning that balance
That's very true.
and knowing when to stop.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. I think a lot of us struggle with actually not knowing when to stop, and even when we know to stop, we don't want to stop. Yeah, that's we get too hard on ourselves.
Yeah, I'm definitely at fault with that one.
We will get into all of this and so many more questions that I have for you. But before we start, I want to know How were you as a kid? Where were you born? Were you an artsy child?
So I was born in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, um, pretty much in the mountain area. I think it's called Northeast PA, Central PA. Bloomsburg is where the name of the town is. I think it was like the only town in Pennsylvania. And I didn't go to a huge school. There weren't a ton of opportunities for art. You just took literally just an art class where I was from. I've had friends from school who've taken like huge classes where they're like, yeah, I took graphic design in high school. And I was like, I took art, which was like a study hall. I just did whatever I wanted to do. Most times, I'm not even sure if I did art. I probably like caught up in homework. But as a kid, as a young kid, I had always been really into art. I have an older sister. I have three sisters. The oldest one, she's always been artistic and creative. She's kind of been my mentor in a
Wow.
way, as far as like guiding me down the graphic design path and the art path. And I always admired her and her talent. And I think it really influenced me to explore that side of myself as a young kid. I have pictures of myself in my high chair painting. Like I was always doing stuff art wise. And my mom, I think most importantly, she raised my sisters and I almost pretty much by herself. My dad traveled a lot for work. So it was really just her kind of taking the reins on our imagination
Wow.
and childhood and creativity. And she has such like a creative mind. I mean, she used to tell us the craziest stories. We lived in like a wooded area, and she would like tell us stories that like we had a wizard that lived in our
Wow.
woods, and there was a witch and a princess that was stuck in a tree, and she'd show us where everything was in the woods. Like we always had just a warped imagination, and I think that also influenced just who I am, like that quirky side, and I think imagination is so important. So
Now I know where are those illustrations coming from.
yeah, that's definitely my mom to blame. So, yeah, I think if I didn't have such a crazy, weird mom who I love to pieces, and I wouldn't trade her for the world. And I had friends that even knew that. Like, my mom was like the coolest mom. Like, everybody came
Oh,
to our house. She would be like the type of person who'd be like, come grab a cup of coffee. We're going on the porch. We're going to talk about your problems. Like, she was just she was like a best friend. So she really influenced us as far as being that creative and imaginative and not feeling like you're weird for being different. So I think I embrace that even today, and I'll do that with my kids too, with creativity.
that's very heartwarming and very wonderful to hear because it's our upbringing, how we grow in the early years, that really empowers our imagination. And once you set it loose, the wonders it can do for us is just, it's just amazing. You know, every time I would see your illustrations, it just transfers you into another world. I have two prints of yours now, and I just feel like, you know, every time I would look at the one that I have, the first one that I bought from you, it actually is hanged in my niece's room, and she's really young. And every time I look at it, I feel like transported
Oh,
into another world, a positive, powerful, imaginative, magical world. And it's very empowering. Not only that, as a child, that we all have imaginations, but as we grow old, somehow that imagination, like that child, gets too scared to even dream. How have you been able to keep your inner child and that imagination safe from the outside world and not lose it even when you're growing?
well, I think I could probably answer that a few ways. Now, as a mom, it's a little different because now's like definitely the time to not hold back on that kind of creativity and imagination, because I want that for my kids. I want them to be able to look at something differently, and that's also just a great way to problem solve also,
Yeah.
which is useful when you're older. But I think the one thing that And it was kind of more of a struggle maybe when I was younger because you want to fit in, you don't want to be like the weird. I don't want to say it's not weird. Like I didn't want to be like you just kind of want to be type A. You kind of just want to fit in with everybody else. Being different's not a good thing. To answer that question, short answer is, when you're younger, like you don't want to be different. You don't want to think differently. You want to kind of be like everybody else. Um, so it was harder to deal with wanting to be myself and knowing that I have an imagination that I want to that I think differently, and I like, and I would always have like I would always draw comics and things like that, or I would draw whatever. Like I never hid that side. I think in my early 20s, once I got to school, I just really embraced it. And I said, I really don't care. I don't care what people think of me. And I think I love all those things. I don't hide that I love like David Bowie and I love like 80s stuff. Like I love my old child classic 80s movies because they're full of adventure. And I love that. Like it takes you to places, or like even the books I read, like I read a lot of fantasy and
Yeah.
things like that. And like it is who I am. And so, even when I met my husband, like I think that was one of the things he loved most was just that I was so different, than anybody he had met. And I have introduced him to things like even music from back in like the 70s and things like that. And my mom always like said like, no, what was the thing she used to say? She used to say, why be normal when you can be abnormal? Like it's literally like one of her quotes. And I'm like, you're right. Like, why would you want to be normal? Like being abnormal is so different. You're unique. And so anyway, as an adult, I really embrace that. And maybe some people think I'm weird. When I have conversations with them, I think a majority of them like that I'm genuine and this is literally who I am. I'm not some like perfect person. Um, and I think as far as like being a mom goes, just having that influence on my son is going to be such a great thing.
Yeah.
And keeping that childhood like nostalgia and fantasy and adventure and stuff like that. Like I mean, adults are just big kids. That's it.
I love that. I love that.
So
And that's
that's the simple.
That's so inspiring and true. I mean, not a lot of us are able to do that to ourselves. We become too hard, we become too judgmental of our own self. It's like it's not only about others, it's also about us.
Yeah.
We get too judgmental, we put too much pressure on ourselves. We want to grow up more than anyone else. So it's very refreshing, and I would say we love you for everything that you do and everything you've created because of all of that you love. I mean, every time I see a new product, a new illustration, let's say even at Fugly Barbie, I think I did not grow up in the US, but ever since you've launched Fugly Barbie, I'm like, I'm obsessed. I'm literally obsessed with everything that you put out because I love the aesthetic. I
Oh,
love the vibe. I may not relate to all of the content because I did not grow up into it. I've not seen all of those movies. But honestly, for me, it feels like it transports me into a place that I would really love to be in. So I mean, it's you have please be the
I love
wonderful weird self that you are, because we are more weird people like myself
that.
feel more belong than anything else. Perfect. Okay. Let's You run multiple businesses, and I'm sure it's not easy being a maker yourself and then also running businesses. I mean, they're two very very different skill sets and very definite job roles. And you don't run one, two, three.
Yeah.
If I can count, I think you run four businesses right now. I may be wrong, but that's
um, I think it's pretty close. Yeah, I actually tried to scale it down and consolidate,
yeah.
but three. I think it's no, maybe it is four. Yeah, maybe it is four.
We'll
Yep,
figure it out. Let's figure it
it's
out.
four.
Perfect.
Technically, it's five.
You do more wonderful things, but let's get back to how you started and what was it. The most difficult thing is to take that first step. How was that for you? What was your first step?
Sure. So, I think great grandfather was a huge entrepreneur. He owned several businesses, very successful businesses, self made. He was very well off. And then on top of that, his daughter was my grandmother. And I saw her do the same thing. She owned a business with my grandfather. And then my dad had always had these like inspiring side things that he always wanted to do. He never got to that point where he would do them, like opening up a pizza shop or an ice cream stand or whatever. But he always wanted to do that, and I think somewhere in my bloodline, I think there's just like this entrepreneur side, and I think I really feel like I've never just wanted to sit behind a desk.
Yeah.
I've never wanted to just sit behind a
Yeah.
desk and just design and work for someone else. And that goes back to even school. I knew that. And I always wanted to do something else. And luckily, with the talent of graphic design, you can do that. You can brand anything. You can brand any kind of business.
Yeah.
So I really had the skill set to like get myself off the ground and at least have a great appearance. Whether or not my business model was good, that was something I had to work on.
I can so relate to that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like my business. I mean, I've learned a lot now, but when I started, I didn't know anything. I still don't even know if I know anything, but I know more than I guess what I started out. So when I was working full time as a designer, I started making macaroons because I really loved them, and then that was kind of like my first real like side gig. And then I realized I don't even know if I liked baking them. I think I just like taking the pictures and like selling them. And I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me.
Wow, this is an unknown fact for us.
Yeah, it was. I had like boxed them up. I them. My husband and I would wake up at like 6 a.m. Well, he wasn't my husband at the time, but we were dating. We'd wake up at 6 a.m. and we'd box them, and I'd cook them the night before, or a couple nights before, froze them. It was crazy, and but I loved that. I loved what I loved the most was when someone got the box of macaroons. They shared it with me. They shared that experience that I gave them because that's what I wanted. I wanted like this, they open the box and there's color and then there's the macaroons and it's just this beautiful thing. And I love making people feel a certain way, like that kind of
Yeah.
experience. And so um, I think like, what was it, 2016, I made this decision to like work for myself. I was done working for the man. I was done working with people that were toxic. And my husband was like, you know what? Why don't you start working for yourself? You're very talented. You've got, I guess I have some pretty good people skills. And I always wanted to work like with the client. Like I didn't want to be the
Yeah.
middleman, and I just wanted to work one on one and build those client relationships. So I started with graphic design, had some clients, did some freelance, and then little by little, I reconnected with Katia. I knew her in school, and her and I kind of had this great relationship going with Create Magazine. She
Yeah.
asked me if I would design for her, and I was like, yes, like this sounds like an amazing opportunity. And at that time, I actually wasn't even in the art world, but I loved art. And I think a lot of us graphic designers, like we love art, but we're just
Onlookers.
you're so like busy with the other side. Yes, like it's like one of those like forgotten things like that you love, and then all of a sudden you're like re submitted into the art world, and then you yourself start getting back into art because you're so like influenced by and inspired by everybody around you and talking to people. So that's kind of how it all transitioned from me working like 9 to 5 to working for myself, starting things, taking that leap of faith. And it was scary, but I think now since I've been doing it for so long, it's not. And in fact, like I really enjoy making people feel great,
Yeah.
whether that's with Fugly Barbie or Candyfloss and helping people. I just want to help people, and I think Katia really like showed me that forget the competition. There's no competition. You just build each other up, and when she builds me up, I built her up, and I think having that kind of mentality and then applying that to other people, like, hey, you're new into the art world, let's get you like out there, let me, get you in front of other people, I love your stuff, let's communicate, let's do an interview. Like now I'm like following people and their personal lives, and I love it. It's like a bunch of friends, and it's a huge community that I'm a part of. And it's great. So it's been very rewarding so far.
The first time I got to know about you was, of course, via Create and how you were designing. I always loved the work that you
Mhm.
were doing, Create, but I never knew it was you. When I saw that, I of course stalked you, and I saw everything else that you do, and it was very inspiring for me to even see. Of course, Cat has been a very big catalyst for myself and so many of us.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's how you lead by example. She's been extremely
Yeah.
supportive without saying it, but actually doing it. The first time when I saw your work, and I figured that you were also running your own art publication, which was Picture and Candyfloss, and it was for from the
Mhm.
place that I come from. I had never seen that. I'd be really honest. I have never seen someone who's like, you're doing the Create edit, you're designing the magazine for Create and everything for Create, and you're also independently running another publication for yourself, which is of course a contemporary art publication. And it felt, honestly, to me as a viewer, I felt it opened up so much of space that it doesn't have to be toxic, it doesn't have to be extremely
Wow.
competitive. You could do the same work for someone and the same person, and I've seen Kat uplifting you, cheering for you, rooting for you, always putting you out,
Oh, she's the best.
it really was.
She really changed my life.
Wow, that's so wonderful. Because that was really, really empowering and refreshing to see. Refreshing to see Kat supporting someone who does, like, you do brilliant work. There's no second thought about that. But she's like, you're also doing the same work for someone else, for Create. And it was very uplifting to see two of you together and empowering each other instead of feeling insecure. There could be so many other things.
Yeah, people sabotage. And I mean, even just in the design world, I noticed that a lot. That's one of the things I actually don't really like about the design world is the competitiveness.
Yeah.
And I saw that a lot with two places I worked with, actually. My first job was amazing. I have to say I loved my team. But the next two jobs after that, I had there was so much competition and toxicity that I quit one of them, moved to a different one, and then it was just as bad. And then I was like, I'm out of this. And I think with Fugly Barbie especially, I had the opportunity to mentor a designer, and her and I went to school together. Long story short, and she really loved what I was doing, and she had the anxieties of being a designer, and I don't even think she had a design job. She just worked at a bank, and I was like, you have so much talent. Like you could do this. You
Yeah.
can have, you don't have to go anywhere. You can sit behind a computer and you can design and still be creative and make money. And so I mentored her, and her and I, we'll find things out different, different you know things because we're on the same platform, which is Etsy, and we're constantly going back and forth. Even I send her illustrations. I'm like, what do you think of this? And she'll send me some. And I think being a mentor instead of sabotaging someone is the best thing you can. Like, you only have one life, first of all.
Yeah.
And I'm a true believer that when I die, when I'm hopefully going to be like in my late 80s, but on my deathbed, I would hate to have sabotaged somebody's,
Yeah.
life that way. Like I would want to look back and be like, look at all the people I helped. This was such like a rewarding life, for everything I could use my talent for and build people up. And I think it's hard to get out of that mindset when you're in the design world for so
Yeah.
long. But it was really Kat that showed me that that build people up, and it's such a great thing, and it really is.
I
It's like
love that.
that's probably why I don't feel like I work, because I just
That's
love it.
true. That's true. I think I love like how I've done, I don't know, maybe 15 episodes so far, and there's not one conversation that we've not had before without mentioning her, because it's just been like it's like a domino effect. Like, she started one, and it's just multiplying, and it's extremely empowering, because if had she not been there for you, you would have not seen that said there's a better way. I would have not seen there's a better way. There would not be a candy floss, a picture, a fugly Barbie, or there would not be an arts to hearts. Or there's so many things. I mean,
Yeah.
how one positive action can trigger so many more positive actions that can actually help so many more of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, and that's just, that's what you have to keep in mind for everything you do, because you don't know how you impact. Like, I don't even feel like I impact people until they come to me and they tell me, even with the conversation I'm having with you, that's, I just feel like I'm like, a mom who's trying to get stuff done, and I'm not even aware of what I'm doing, hoping that I make an impact with people's lives
Oh,
and
you
make a
are.
difference.
You
But,
are.
when you hear it, it's one of those things. It's just great. It's rewarding.
Sometimes we don't realize, but I now that you're saying, consuming your work, like, since you put so many out there, I think I've consumed a lot of your work. Someone myself who's also into branding, I always look out for what you do, and it always inspires me, and I'm like, oh my god, how did she think that? Oh my god, how did she do that? Oh my god, I'm going to try this. Like, it just feels so positive and encouraging to see, like to have someone with a similar mindset, and you get obsessed with that person's work, and you're like, oh my god. Sometimes it comes to my mind, okay, how let me check out how Shelby does that, like, a lot of times. And your illustrations, or for that
It's
matter,
easy.
like Fugly Barbie, I'm obsessed. I'm really, really obsessed. So it's just that when you love someone, and like us creators, when you put something out there, you don't like, we often underestimate our own values. But let's say I am a consumer today for everything that you're doing, and I can tell you how much positivity it brings to me, and how much I love uh, consuming different things that you do in different places.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome to hear. 'Cause I don't know. I don't feel like I'm doing that much, but I guess
You
I
are, you
just
are.
should keep going and
Yes.
stop second guessing.
Yes, yes. Now that you were in design, you met Kat, you were doing the design
Mhm,
work for Create and everything. How did your first art
mhm.
publication come to life? How did you decide that, okay, now that you're here, you also want to venture into something like this? Running an art publication is also a lot of business work, it's also a lot of content work, and it's not all creative. So, how did that pan out for you?
Um, that's a really good question. So, I remember having a conversation with Kat about it, and um, I loved when I was designing Create, especially in the beginning. There were pieces that really stuck out to me. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but I remember when I would like design, and there'd be certain artists that I'm like, "Ooh, I really love this person's stuff. Like, this is really neat." And most of it was kind of the more eclectic kind of art. And so I was like, and on top of that, I always had this idea of kind of marrying fine art with illustration and design and maybe 2D work, like just different kind of mediums. Um, and like, is that possible to come together? Because I'm like, well, this could be really bad because now your demographics just all over the place and maybe nobody wants to be a part of it. And I was like, or it could be a really great marriage between these kind of worlds that I don't normally see together. And so that was kind of how Picture came about. And I wanted to focus more on maybe like this like lowbrow kind of weird side of, I guess it would be more on my like quirky side, like my Fugly Barbie kind of side. Like it had like a specific kind of look to it, and appearance, and almost like an underground kind of magazine. And I loved it. Like, and it was, I have like a small team. As far as like the business side, it was really like me just figuring it out. Katia also mentored me, which was great. So, it was kind of just like figuring things out and what worked best for myself and for the publication. And then it spiraled into me wanting to try a different demographic, but still keeping that same idea of like the illustration side and then like the fine art side and the design side. And when I started Candyfloss, I was like, it kind of like how you were saying with wanting to know more about the artists. I was like, I don't really want to know so much like, the bio, artist statement. Like, I could read that on their website. Like, I want to know more. I want like a theme, and but still marrying these two people because that are two people, these like different kind of backgrounds
Yeah.
because we're all creative.
Yeah.
There's a common denominators that we all like to create. We just create differently.
Yeah.
And so, and actually, as I'm building Candy Floss, even for this new issue, it's less like bio. It's gonna be less like the bio and artist statement. It's gonna be more about the artist, their work that they submitted. Like, I want to know more. I want to know,
Yeah.
like, as my husband proofreads for me. I proofread, so we catch little things. And even he said, he's like, I always read about the artist. He's like, not that I don't care that where they graduated or what degrees they have, but I'm not hiring them. I just want to know more about them.
Yeah.
What makes them tick, and like why is it that they submitted this kind of work? And so that's kind of the direction where it's going. And as I have more kids, my time kind of gets a little bit harder to manage everything. And I think just like on top of it, a lot of the people from Picture were coming to Candyfloss. And I was like, well, we have like a similar audience. Why don't we just combine the two?
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of people are just kind of bouncing between the two applications. And they're very, I don't want to say similar, but they're structured similar. And so that's why we made the decision, let's just do Candyfloss. Like that's what we're doing. And my small team would be easier to manage that way
Yeah.
too. And that's kind of where we're going right now. I'm excited about it. I'm super pumped.
Awesome. Love that. I think I love the young aesthetic and like the vibe, the electric, like the vibe Candy Floss has, and also like how it bridges the gap between arts, craft, design, illustration, all of it together, and places everyone in a
Hmm.
level of a creator more than anything else. And I just love. I think the
Yeah.
I love the issue that I was in, the magical one, especially the cover. I absolutely love the one that you recently put out,
Mhm.
and I think all these issues have been just really, really amazing. Okay, let's go to another kind of your
Oh,
business.
thank you.
Let's go to another kind of your business, which is
Okay.
how did you then, after running these publications and you were still doing create and other publications for that, I believe. Um, then what happened? How did rest of these come to life?
So, that's a fun one. Well, I realized that, when was that? Right before my son Henry was born, I was starting to kind of not want to do client services anymore as far as graphic design goes. And I think I even had a conversation with Kat to let her know, like, I'm going to give this a shot. Like, I just kind of stepped away from Maple projects because I have a baby and now I'm trying to figure out being a mother. And on top of everything, I still had Picture. And I think I just launched Candy Floss. I can't remember. And I was like, I'm going to give this a shot, and really try to manage everything. And I think once I became pregnant, and everything was great up until I got pregnant again, and realizing, okay, wait a minute, I have another kid coming. I don't really know if I can handle this huge responsibility, and to work with a client on top of it, you really have to work on their deadlines.
Yeah,
And I just was like at this point where I was like, I want to do my own personal stuff. I think Katia, her and I had a great conversation about it. She's been super supportive. She knew, she knew like that was a great idea for me. and respected that. And I pretty much, and I think when, what was it, the start of the pandemic was the start of Fugly Barbie, which came on by accident. That wasn't really, I never thought it would be like where it is right now. But it's been doing awesome. It's been such a blessing, and and just like a wild ride on top of it, that I kind of just decided that I was like, you know what? I'm going to make my own schedules. Anything I
Yeah.
do has to be like on my own terms, has to be, and my team's really great, which is awesome. So it's just been, that's been my focus. So really, when I started Fugly Barbie and just doing illustration on the side, I really only do it when like my kid's napping or at night, because I really want to be present in his life. Like I don't want him seeing his mom on the computer all the time.
Yeah.
Not to, there's times where I am on the computer and I have to be if I've just got too much stuff, but most of the time I just focus on him. And So that's kind of just how things have been playing out, and I'm just really seeing how it goes. Once kid number two comes, we'll see what happens. But I've just been kind of, only taking on as much as I can chew,
Yeah.
and knowing my limits, and knowing when to stop, and everything. So that's kind of how I think I answered the question right.
Yes, you
But
did. You did.
yeah, that's kind of how things have been going.
Perfect. That sounds fantastic. Another thing that comes to my mind, and actually, I was like, every time you would run like start a project, and I would see not only like, what I really like is sometimes you find like someone who's a great business person, marketer, or like a entrepreneur, or someone who would be like an amazing creative or an artist or a designer. I think in the past 1 2 years, I found like I've met so many of you who are not only amazing entrepreneurs but amazing artists, or amazing artists but great entrepreneurs yourself. My biggest question to you is that you've not only launched multiple businesses. Of course, these are multiple revenue sources. You What you create is fantastic, right? But the difficult part is also making it successful financially, making sense of the numbers. Let's say when you launch the art publication, there was a lot of business side to it. You Candyfloss, I believe, of course, is doing great. It serves so many other artists. It's been there, and a lot of us love it. With Etsy, I think you launched Etsy. I think I don't know. Has it even been an year? The your Fugly.
It has.
Oh, wow.
It just came a year.
Awesome. So you
Yep, just a year in April.
wow. So you launched it a year ago. You have a super successful Etsy shop. You were running two art publications. Then you were also working with client servicing. How has marketing, or marketing especially, because again, it's all a game of marketing. Has that been something that you've been good with in the beginning? Or what do you feel has been one of the pivotal reasons for you to have successful businesses? Not one, not two, but three, let's say.
Oh. um, so as far as marketing goes, my husband, he studied marketing.
Oh,
As far as like when you want to talk about like logistics and ROI and stuff like that, what you put in, what you're investing, like all of that stuff, like he knew inside and out, and kind of taught me.
yes.
Honestly, I don't even really use that much. When it comes to marketing and when it comes to marketing and advertising, my only thing that I keep like that's consistent is having the a consistent voice, but not only that, but having like interactions with people who are supporting you, and communication is like really, like my word of mouth is my best advertising and marketing scheme. Like I don't even say scheme. It's just if people love your stuff, they're going to talk about it. And if they love you and they love who you are, they're going to want to support you. And on top of it, like I just want to get to know people who are supporting me. And whether that's with Fugly Barbie, with customers, my little niches that I have, and or Candyfloss with artists, reaching out to people and talking to them and supporting them. And I think like that's how I've just been doing it. I don't have even like a formula for that either. It's just, you have a brand. Who are you marketing to? What's your story? Why do people want to value you? Because you are in a competitive market. What makes you different? And all I know is that I just love talking to people and I love making people feel great. And if that's through communication, support, networking, whatever, that's just how I've been doing things, I think. And so far it's been working, I guess. But
Yeah.
um, that's really how I've been doing it. Like I don't pay for advertising. Um, I, I have posts that I love to interact with people, especially with Fugly Barbie. I'm like, what do you guys want to see in my shop? Comment below, put an emoji for horror or, romance novel or whatever, because I genuinely care. I'm like, who's coming to my shop? What do these people want? Am I giving them what they want? Is my product like, good? Like, I don't know, it's just, it's like all these questions I have, and the people who are answering them are the people who are coming to my shop. So it makes sense. So I think the short answer for that too is just when you want to market your brand or your artwork or whatever, interact with the people, your community, interact with the people who are coming to visit you, who want to support you. They're the ones that are going to be talking about you to their friends, and that's clearly what's I guess been happening. and
Yeah.
and I and I love that. And so that's word of mouth has just been the best thing. And so as far as marketing goes, you just got to get to know your audience and like have great customer service and care about people.
I
I
love
think
that.
caring about people is the number one thing.
I love
Hmm.
that. I absolutely love that. And I
So
think
that's my secret.
I would so agree with everything that you're saying. And that's I think it's just amazing with seeing you do all of these things with so much of love, because at the end of the day, all of that, like, that's all that matters. Like,
It is.
how much happiness does it bring to you, and how much happiness it brings to other people. Okay, my last question to you.
Yeah, I mean it does. It really does.
My last question to you before we get onto the best part of the podcast is, which I generally ask to all my guests, and it really, like, it's one of my favorite questions actually. Um, my question is, if what really puts, let's say, what really puts you off bed, like, if there was no fluff around it, like, of course, we do what we do for several reasons. It's never one linear thing. But let's say if there was no fluff around your work that you're doing, let's say, no popularity, no revenue, nothing, like, if you were creating for the sole reason of creating, why would you be doing what you're doing today? Like, why would you still choose to do what you're doing today, even then?
I think about this one a lot because I always tell my husband if we won the lottery, I'd still work. Like, because I don't know what else. First of all, I don't know what else I would do. I can't stop. I can't. It's either if I'm creating for myself or for other people, or if it's a publication or if it's just my art. I think the small answer, the one word answer is passion.
Yeah.
That's it.
Hmm.
Like if you're not passionate about something, you're not going to do it. And um, so if I didn't like what I was doing, or if I just like liked it, I would also be binge watching movies in my free time instead of creating.
Yeah.
And what I want to do with my free time is creating, drawing, and you know helping people or designing magazines. Like it's a passion, and I
Love.
think it's something that I don't know if everyone's born with that, but I think that's my short answer.
Yes, love that. Thank you so much, Shelby. I think I had a great time. I have a lot more questions, but I think we'll have to do another one with you to answer all of those. But thank you so
Oh yeah,
much. Thank you so much for being
we can
so
do a
honest.
focused one.
Thank you so much for being so honest and so
Oh,
wonderful
you're
and so
welcome.
warm. Okay, now comes the rapid fire. I have already briefed you about it, but I'm going to just put it again. It's a fun little rapid fire. The idea is to get to know you a little bit more. It has to be quick and fast. I'll ask you questions. You have to tell me what comes to your mind in the first instant, and that's it. So there's no right and wrong. We just want to know you better.
Ooh, okay.
Are you ready?
Okay.
Let's do this.
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
Perfect. Let's do this. One thing you want to convey through your work in the arts.
Inspiration.
Oh. What's the one word that describes you the best?
Unique.
Love that. Okay. If you could have a physical studio anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, I know. I would have. Wait, is this a one word answer? Because I'll try to keep it short.
Yes, sure.
But um, if I could be anywhere in the world, it would be in a small cottage with, like a little, like log, not log cabin, but some kind of cottagey thing in Scotland, in the
Oh,
Highlands, surrounded by probably sheep. And I would paint in front of or draw in front of like a wood stove, like and have
wow.
tea and scones. Like that's what I
It
would do.
just,
That would be my
it
studio.
sounds so beautiful. I don't know how beautiful it would feel. Please invite me whenever this is happening. Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to manifest that
Yeah,
one.
but I'm putting that in the world for you so that even I get to come in.
Thank
Okay. Uh,
you. Awesome.
your
You're invited.
biggest, done. Your biggest source of inspiration.
Music.
Oh, wow. That's new.
I listen to music all the time. Yeah, I honestly, even when I was designing, especially if I'm like designing something that's like maybe like a period reference, like 20s ish or something that's maybe more 80s ish, I always listen to, like I have such a huge range of music that I love, and I cannot do what I'm doing at all without music, and so music's it. It gets me into like a weird spot where I can start, thinking, and whether I'm creating or just thinking, it's yeah,
Love
I
that.
can't even imagine a world without music. So that would definitely be it.
Perfect. Okay, I asked this question because, I just want to normalize the fact that we're all born creative and that, no matter what age you start or what age, I'll ask the question. Let me not be. Your age when you visited a museum or a gallery for the first time.
Oh, okay. Let me think. I think it was because I lived in the middle of nowhere and I rarely traveled outside of Bloomsburg at the time. So it probably wasn't until until I was in college. So I
Wow.
had to have been, I think, like 18 or 19. My sister took me
Awesome.
to Philly. It was either Philly or New York, I can't remember. And it
Wow.
was an exhibition for who was it? Oh my gosh. He did Where the Wild Things Are. Um Maurice Sendak, I think is his, yeah,
Yeah.
Maurice Sendak.
Recenter.
So it was like his exhibition, and then I loved it. And then I saw like when we were in Scotland, my friends and I, my one friend was an art major at the time. We went to see a Goya exhibition,
Wow.
and that was like the coolest thing. But those were probably like my first real
I really
experiences with
always want to
museums.
ask this question more and more to people because I feel like since I was living in India, we never had like a gallery or like a museum culture, and I did not visit one until
Hmm.
I actually traveled outside of India, and I felt like, okay, oh yeah, this is something I could go and look at, and you're still there, you're doing some amazing things, but just normalizing the fact that we've all grown in different places. Our 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 skill sets and where we can go has nothing to do with where we started and how we started and at what point we started. So here we go.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Next question.
absolutely.
Who is your favorite women artist from any point of time you could mention?
Oh my gosh, this one's so hard.
Okay, this has
Favorite
to be
woman
quick. One
artist.
person that comes to your mind. Who is your
Oh,
favorite women artist?
um, I'm gonna have to say Katia right now because I can't really think, but she is one of my
I
favorites.
I would agree.
I'm going with Katia
Yes.
because
Love that. That's a great answer, actually.
She is my favorite. She's my biggest
Yeah, mine too, mine too. She's always on my heart list. Okay. Who is your go-to
inspiration.
person when you're in trouble or you need advice?
My go-to person is probably my husband.
Yeah,
Definitely. He's like my shoulder.
love that. Okay, this is okay. It's a tricky question, but let's see this. What
Okay.
has been your favorite moment as an artist? Can you pinpoint one moment out of many that you have? I'm sure um, that you feel like okay, something happened and you felt like oh my god, you feel great to be an artist. Like you feel like any experience, any incident that you would like to share with us.
I would um it's probably more illustration side because it's Fugly Barbie, but I think um, the best thing ever was just hearing people how much like my products have brought them so much joy. And even my anxiety shirt that I have on there, someone wore it to like a meeting.
Wow.
They had to give a speech, and they're like, "You have no idea how much this helped me." And I was like, "That's crazy!" Like I that happened. That you really had that kind of I have that kind of impact. And so I'd say like literally reading my reviews on Etsy are like it, just verifying that I'm like, okay, I'm doing something great and I'm really impacting people with
Love that.
my skills and illustration.
Yes, you are. Yes, you
So
are.
that's probably one of the bigger ones.
You are. Oh, okay. If you were to meet younger Shelby today, what advice would you give her?
Oh gosh. How old would I be? Because I feel like there's so many times I could have said something. Um, I would say overall, younger Shelby, I would say, don't care as much about what people think about you.
Love that.
Hmm.
Okay. My last question to you. Shout out to an artist or to whatever who's currently on your heart list slash you're loving.
Um, Mindy Carpenter.
Oh, yes, I love her work.
Mindy Carpenter has been. I love seeing her. Like I love seeing everything that she's doing, and I follow her too on her Instagram. And her every time I go, I'm like I always feel like I don't know. It's like a peaceful place to go. And I'd say Alan Howard is probably the other one. I'm like these everything that they create. It just brings me to this like really peaceful,
Yeah,
playful, like carefree space. And um, that's those are probably my. I mean, it's hard because it's like I follow so many people,
yeah.
but those two I follow on the daily, and I love to see their stuff. So that's
Love
who
that.
it
I
is.
think I absolutely love her work myself. It's very refreshing and it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's very candy flossy, I would say. It's a perfect.
It is. It really. That's probably why I'm like bring me into the mood.
Perfect. This has been so much fun, Shelby. Thank you so much. I really am grateful for you agreeing to come here and then being so honest and so warm. But before I let you go, I have just one last question, and that is, do you have something coming up that
Okay.
you would like to share? That you would like to share with the listeners that they can support you, follow you, or you would like all of us to know about? And where can we find you and follow you?
So Fugly Barbie's obviously easy one to follow. I mean, I don't. You could Google Fugly Barbie, and I think I'm the only one that pops up. But as far as things that I'm working on, I think my illustrations, I've been trying to dabble a little bit more into that and finding that like peaceful spot at night after when my kids go into bed. So I'm going to be creating some more kind of like playful, childlike illustrations that do incorporate that kind of like imaginative space. So you can see a lot of that mostly on my Instagram, which I think my Etsy shop's on there too. My Instagram is Shelby underscore McFadden. So you can find personal artwork there. And then we have a call for art currently open for Candyfloss, and it's free submission. All you do is just add a hashtag. So those
Wow.
are the big things.
Yes. Okay. So everything that you've mentioned, Shelby, and everyone who's listening, I will link all the links and everything that we've also talked about in this episode on the show notes. So you can go to our website www.arts2hearts project, and you can find all the links to Shelby's projects, to Fugly Barbie, to Candyfloss, and all the artists that she's mentioned, and you can find all the goodness there. Okay, thank you so much, Shelby. I can't wait to catch up with you again, and I'm here rooting for you. Always, always inspired of you, everything that you do, and always obsessed with Fugly Barbie and Candy Floss, actually. Okay, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you so much.
Bye bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. You can find all the details and links mentioned in the show notes of this episode available on www.arts2heartsproject.com. And if you like this episode, please don't forget to tag us in your stories and leave us a review here on iTunes or any of your favorite platforms. It really helps us to keep the show going. Thank you so much. I'm sending you lots of love, and I can't wait to be back here soon again. Bye.